Democrats and Republicans pressing for answers on how the Secret Service failed to secure the building where 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks fired from a rooftop less than 150 yards away from the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania.
But this was the first time in history, according to a former senior agent, that a Secret Service sniper killed a would-be assassin.
The nation was shocked by Thomas Matthew Crooks' assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Now, Matthew Crooks faces potential legal consequences that could set a key precedent for parental liability. Will he be held accountable like the Crumbleys, or will he avoid their fate? But now the legal fallout for his father, Matthew Crooks, could set a crucial precedent for parental liability in crimes committed by their children.
This boy was not a menace to society. This boy was not an issue at all.
On September 20th, 2003, Thomas Matthew Crooks entered the world as the son of Matthew and Mary Crooks. The family resided in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, a tranquil, middle-class neighborhood that seemed the ideal backdrop for a stable upbringing. Matthew and Mary, both licensed professional counselors, provided an environment that promised support and guidance. Yet, as the world would come to learn, even the most seemingly stable homes can harbor deep-seated troubles. From a young age, Thomas demonstrated an academic prowess that set him apart. Attending Bethel Park High School, he earned accolades for his scholastic achievements, consistently ranking at the top of his class. Teachers praised his intelligence and dedication, with his potential seeming limitless. However, beneath his academic success lay a social landscape fraught with challenges. Thomas was not your typical high school student. His quiet demeanor, combined with an unusual choice of attire, camouflage and hunting outfits, set him apart from his peers. This attire preference, coupled with an unfortunate issue with body odor, made him a target for bullies. Classmates, unable or unwilling to understand his quirks, often subjected him to bullying.
A kid that was always alone, he was always bullied every day.
Former classmates say that he was bullied a lot in school.
Thomas's shyness only compounded his social difficulties. While his classmates thrived in the vibrant social scene of high school, Thomas remained on the sidelines, more of an observer than a participant. Despite this, his school record showed no signs of aggression. He was never the instigator in disciplinary incidents. Thomas endured the bullying in silence, his quiet suffering largely unnoticed by those around him.
Never was an issue. Thomas was a very quiet young man, intelligent. He took AP courses, he took an honors class, he took college prep courses.
This contrast between Thomas's academic brilliance and social struggles painted a complex picture. On one hand, he was a bright student with a promising future. On the other, a solitary figure battling an inner turmoil that few understood. As his story began to unravel, it became clear that the seemingly inconsequential details of his high school years were the pieces of a much larger, more troubling puzzle. The world would soon witness the dark turn in Thomas's life, raising questions about the unseen battles faced by those who, on the surface, appeared to have everything under control. The quiet halls of Bethel Park High School, once a stage for his academic triumphs, now echo with the haunting memories of what was overlooked. A young man in desperate need of help, navigating a path that would lead to unforeseen and devastating consequences. Despite his personal struggles, Thomas Matthew Crooks was a young man with a range of passions. Chess was more than a hobby for him. It was a competitive pursuit that he engaged in both tournaments and socially. Video games also captivated him, providing an escape into immersive virtual worlds where he could lose himself for hours. His proficiency with computers was another standout trait, showcasing his technical aptitude and curiosity. Yet, there were contradictions in his story. Though Thomas reportedly tried out for the Bethel Park High School rifle team, it was allegedly rejected due to poor aim. The Bethel Park School District, however, has no record of his attempt, raising questions about the veracity of these claims. Nevertheless, Thomas later became a member of the Clareton Sportsman's Club around 2023, hinting at a continued interest in firearms. Adding another layer of complexity, state voting records reveal that Thomas was a registered Republican. However, his political affiliations took a curious turn in 2021 when he made a $15 donation to Act Blue, a liberal campaign fund. This financial gesture further complicates the portrait of a young man whose life seemed to straddle divergent paths. According to the BBC, the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump was far from an impulsive act. It was the climax of a meticulously orchestrated plan. The FBI has revealed that Thomas Matthew Crooks began laying the groundwork for his deadly scheme on July 6, 2024. This date marked the start of his preparations, including registering to attend Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. On that very day, Crooks conducted a chilling search on the internet, investigating the distance between Lee Harvey Oswald and President John F. Kennedy during the assassination on November 22, 1963 in Dallas, Texas. His search history from July 6th to July 13th reflects an obsessive focus on Donald Trump and his campaign. Despite initial theories suggesting outside influence or assistance, the FBI has determined that Thomas Crooks acted alone, carrying out his attack without any external support. In the weeks leading up to the shooting on July 13, 2024, the FBI uncovered chilling details about Thomas Crooks' meticulous preparations. Their investigation revealed that Thomas had conducted extensive surveillance, including flying a drone just 200 yards from the stage, where Donald Trump was scheduled to speak in Butler, Pennsylvania, 2 hours before the rally. Further digging unearthed that Thomas had procured an AR-15 style rifle from his father, Matthew. This weapon, with its collapsible stock, was chosen for its ease of concealment and devastating power. On July 12, Thomas visited his local gun club, a place where he was known to practice. There, he test-fired the newly purchased rifle and meticulously prepared for the next day's attack. He had also acquired over 50 rounds of ammunition and a ladder, which he intended to use to gain access to a vantage point at the rally. These elements underscored the chilling premeditation behind his deadly plan.
Of the shooting, Thomas Crooks bought ammunition at Allegheny Arms, a gun store in this strip mall about a mile from his house. The morning of the shooting, officials say Crooks also went to Home Depot to buy a stepladder.
On July 13th, Thomas had taken the day off from his job at the nursing home, citing a vague something to do. He reassured his coworkers that he'd return on July 14th. As twilight descended, his parents, Matthew and Mary Crooks, grew increasingly worried about their son's unexplained absence. They reported him missing to the police, their voices tinged with concern for his well-being, unaware that Thomas was preparing for a violent act that very night.
Well, the parents of Donald Trump's would-be assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks called police hours before he opened fire at a campaign rally over the weekend.
As they anxiously awaited word on their son, Thomas was making his way to the Donald Trump rally. Armed with a recently acquired AR-15 style rifle, he had meticulously orchestrated his attack. Using a ladder, he climbed to the roof of a building designated as a police staging area. From this elevated vantage point, Thomas had a clear line of sight to the rally below, his grim preparations now set in motion. As Donald Trump spoke to a sea of supporters, the moment took a sinister turn. Thomas Crooks, concealed on the roof, took aim and pulled the trigger. Initially, the crowd mistook the crack of gunfire for celebratory fireworks, a cruel misjudgment that quickly turned to panic as reality set in. One of Thomas's bullets found its mark, grazing Trump's right ear and leaving him wounded. Amidst the turmoil, 50-year-old Corey Compertor, who had bravely tried to shield his family, was struck down instantly. The chaos escalated swiftly as Secret Service agents, trained for such dire situations, moved with precision. One of the counter-sniper teams, stationed to protect Trump, fired back and fatally took down Thomas Crooks. The immediate aftermath was a scene of both relief and horror, as the threat was neutralized, but the cost was painfully evident. Despite the tragic outcome, the events leading up to the attack reveal a series of security failures. The House Homeland Security Committee has since illuminated a web of lapses that contributed to the shocking incident. The venue in Butler, Pennsylvania was fortified with multiple layers of security, intended to shield the rally from harm. Outside, Pennsylvania state police officers maintained a vigilant presence, while Secret Service agents were tasked with securing the inner perimeter. An anti-sniper team, stationed on a rooftop behind the stage, was also on high alert. Yet, the day of the event was marred by confusion and a lack of coordination among these security entities. The responsibilities of each agency were unclear, creating gaps that Thomas Crooks exploited with chilling precision. Kimberly Cheadle, the former director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, found herself in the hot seat during a House of Representatives Oversight Committee hearing following the shooting. She struggled to provide a clear explanation for the absence of rooftop security during the rally. a glaring oversight that allowed Thomas Crooks to execute his plan with unnerving precision. Cheadle admitted that her agents had been alerted to Crooks' presence and suspicious behavior at least twice before the shots rang out. Despite these warnings, the Secret Service only fully grasped the gravity of the situation once the gunfire began, revealing a critical lapse in the chain of communication and response. Meanwhile, the New York Post has brought to light the possibility that mental health issues might have played a role in Crooks' violent actions. Although there are no confirmed medical records indicating he sought treatment, investigators found evidence of his internet searches related to major depressive disorder. This troubling detail adds another layer of complexity to the case, suggesting that Crooks' mental state might have been a contributing factor to the tragedy, even if the full extent of his psychological struggles remains unclear. Major depressive disorder, or MDD, is more than just a fleeting feeling of sadness. It's a profound mood disorder that alters every facet of an individual's life, enveloping them in a persistent cloud of despair and disinterest. This disorder impacts how a person thinks, feels, and behaves, often leading to severe emotional and physical issues. Common symptoms of MDD include debilitating fatigue, drastic changes in appetite, trouble concentrating, and a pervasive sense of worthlessness. In a startling development, FBI Director Christopher Wray revealed during a press briefing that Thomas Crooks' home in Pennsylvania was a repository for an arsenal of over a dozen firearms. Wray described Crooks as a fairly avid shooting enthusiast, a characterization that raises disturbing questions about the role of Crooks' father, Matthew, in the unfolding drama. With such an extensive collection of weapons under the same roof, the investigation is now scrutinizing Matthew Crooks' potential involvement and responsibility in the attack, adding another layer of intrigue and complexity to an already multifaceted case.
Why would your son want to kill the president?
Back off!
No comment.
No comment!
Were there any warning signs, Matthew?
No comment.
Questions have surged around Matthew Crooks' role in the tragic events that unfolded at the Donald Trump rally. Critics are scrutinizing his apparent failure to secure the firearms in his home and his decision to sell his son the AR-15 style rifle used in the attack. These issues are even more pressing given the rumors suggesting that Thomas may have been grappling with severe mental health struggles. Recently, Matthew and Mary Crooks were seen shopping together for the first time since their son's actions thrust them into the public eye. In a brief statement to Fox News Digital, Matthew Crooks indicated that he would not be commenting further without consulting his legal counsel. He emphasized that he and his wife are focusing on their well-being and requested privacy during this challenging time. The potential legal ramifications for Matthew Crooks are significant. The case evokes comparisons to the Crumbleys, Jennifer and James Crumbley, who were charged with involuntary manslaughter after their son, Ethan, carried out a school shooting. Convicted and sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison, the Crumbleys' case established a precedent that could influence how courts address parental responsibility in similar scenarios. This precedent could mean that Matthew Crooks might face similar scrutiny and legal consequences, depending on how the investigation and subsequent legal proceedings unfold. Mass shootings, defined as incidents where 4 or more individuals are shot or killed, have become all too common in the United States.
Their son is accused of killing 4 students during a school rampage in Michigan last November, and the parents are facing their own serious charges of manslaughter for allegedly allowing him access to a gun.
One such tragic event that reshaped discussions on parental responsibility occurred at Oxford High School on November 30th, 2021. 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley unleashed a devastating attack, killing 4 students and injuring 7 others. The horror of the shooting reverberated through the community, leaving a profound impact and raising critical questions about the roles and responsibilities of the shooter's parents. In the wake of the incident, the spotlight turned to Ethan Crumbley's parents, Jennifer and James Crumbley. The prosecution argued that they had failed in their duty to secure the firearms used in the shooting and address their son's escalating mental health issues. This case became a landmark in the national conversation about the extent of parental responsibility in preventing such tragedies. The Crumbleys were charged with involuntary manslaughter, and their case highlighted the legal and ethical debates surrounding parental oversight and the safeguarding of firearms. Their conviction and sentencing to 10 to 15 years in prison set a precedent, influencing how the legal system might approach similar cases involving parents of mass shooters. This precedent now casts a long shadow over similar incidents, including the case of Thomas Crooks, and the ongoing discussions about the responsibilities of parents in preventing such devastating events. While the circumstances surrounding their shootings were different, There are several similarities between Thomas Crooks and Ethan Crumbley.
Surveillance video captures the 15-year-old killer practicing with the 9mm handgun that his parents gave him for Christmas.
The shooting, Thomas Crooks bought ammunition at Allegheny Arms, a gun store in this strip mall about a mile from his house.
Thomas and Ethan were young white men, 20 and 15 years old respectively, when they committed their respective acts of violence. Both shared a profound interest in weapons and had access to firearms purchased by their parents. Thomas Crooks and Ethan Crumbley's fascination with guns extended to amassing collections, suggesting that their enthusiasm for firearms may have been a catalyst for their violent actions. Both young men experienced significant social challenges during their high school years. They were targets of bullying and felt isolated from their peers, which may have exacerbated their mental health struggles. This sense of alienation likely contributed to their eventual descent into violence. As the investigation into Thomas Crooks continues, the potential legal consequences for his father, Matthew Crooks, remain uncertain. If found responsible, Matthew Crooks could face charges similar to those imposed on Jennifer and James Crumbley. The Crumbleys' conviction for their role in the Oxford High School shooting set a significant legal precedent, emphasizing parental responsibility in cases involving their children's access to firearms. The convictions of Jennifer and James Crumbley, who each received sentences ranging from 10 to 15 years, could set a significant precedent for the legal challenges facing Matthew Crooks. Yet it's crucial to remember that any discussions about potential charges or sentences for Crooks are purely speculative at this point. Matthew Crooks might contend that he bears no responsibility for his son Thomas's actions with the AR-15 during the July 13th attack. He could argue that he had no prior knowledge of Thomas's intentions to use the firearm unlawfully and that he had no control over his son's actions or motivations. This defense would center on the idea that he was unaware of any nefarious plans, and that any involvement in the firearms acquisition did not equate to an endorsement or encouragement of criminal behavior.
But we're given the max, 10 to 15 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter. It's the first time in history that parents of a mass shooter have been held criminally responsible for their son's crimes.
The convictions of Jennifer and Jamie Crumbley, who received 10 to 15-year sentences, could provide a precedent for the potential charges against Matthew Crooks. However, it is important to note that speculation surrounding Matthew Crooks' potential sentence remains just that, speculation. Mass shootings have become a tragic and distressing reality in today's society, and parents must educate their children about the issue and instill values that promote safety and prevention.
You were running away from your son and your responsibilities. I was forced to do the worst possible thing a parent could do. I was forced to say goodbye to my medicine.
Research indicates that a lack of parental supervision, neglect, or abuse can significantly increase the likelihood of children engaging in harmful or violent behavior. When parents fail to provide a stable and nurturing environment, it can foster the development of violent thoughts and actions in their children. The impact of media on children's behavior is another critical factor. Exposure to violence and aggression through movies, video games, and other forms of media can desensitize children to the repercussions of such behaviors. Parents who do not monitor or restrict their children's media consumption may unintentionally expose them to content that encourages violent tendencies. Access to firearms also plays a crucial role in mass shootings. A study by Everytown for Gun Safety reveals that 80% of school shootings since 2013 were carried out by individuals who had access to guns in their own homes. Parents who neglect firearm safety and fail to educate their children about responsible gun ownership may unwittingly contribute to an environment where acts of violence become more likely. In the aftermath of the Trump assassination attempt and potential charges against the shooter's father, don't miss the story of teen school shooters facing life sentences.